Sorry.
Yeah, thanks. So good morning, everybody in Texas, and good day for everybody else. I'm Wolfgang, and for those who don't know me, I'm a computer scientist, and I consider myself a semantic MediaWiki expert, given that I've been working with that system mostly since 2015, or I started with 2013. I do earn my living with being a trainer for software architecture and requirements engineering, or at least I used to do that full time. And a few years ago, I started being a PhD candidate, and so about 3/4 of my time, I'm now a research assistant and a student, and sometimes a teacher at RWTH Aachen, I5. That's actually almost the same department where I did my diploma many years ago. And that's kind of fun. And they're using the same rooms, although the content has shifted there a bit. So hopefully I might end up with a PhD. My company is Bitplan GmbH. That's a German way of saying that you don't have full liability if you go, for instance, bankrupt. And we do have a focus on software engineering trainings as outlined for architecture requirements engineering. We do consulting and projects. And if I say we, this is just mostly my wife and me and some freelancers. We used to be much bigger. And we switched from Lotus Notes actually to Synchronizing MediaWiki in 2013. So we've been using a structured way of documenting things we do since 1999. And we decided, no, we don't like that Java-based Lotus Notes anymore. And we've had started the Profi Wiki. Hopefully, if I switch that screen, it will show up at some time. So this page needs to be updated, but it shows the basic principle that we use Docker, standard MediaWiki, Semantic MediaWiki, still got the old logo here, and an automatic installation. This has all been updated now. So in a few days, weeks, you'll see that these things are all alive and kicking, and it sometimes just takes a long time until these things catch up. So we've been busy getting that working. Today, the main thing will be talking about Wikidata, Semantic MediaWiki, and synchronization. So for most of you, I assume that you know what Wikidata is, and I don't have to talk too much about that, but there will be some examples if you're not familiar with Wikidata at all. Semantic MediaWiki, same thing. Everybody who's here is usually most well acquainted with Semantic MediaWiki. Synchronization is a different beast. I have been using synchronization very long because I used to have a PAM computer, which had this great synchronization feature in the 90s. I was using Lotus Notes a lot, which had a great synchronization feature. And it was one of the features I was always missing for all these systems. Why on earth is the data that I have in one system not in another? And why cannot share like data that I have in one system with another one? We've been improving on that with our Wiki Push toolkit a bit, but it was not quite it yet. So the idea was, how do I go about those use cases where I have the need that I put it with Semantic MediaWiki.
Hey, Wolfgang. Sorry, really quick. First of all, you have 30 minutes, but we're only seeing the first screen. The computer scientist, PhD candidate. If you've intended to move on to different screens, we're not seeing it.
So basically, it just doesn't update. So I might slide forward, so the people that have the link could do that. But I don't know what I should do because I pushed the share button. So what do you think? What can we do about this?
You could announce that. Yeah, you could announce the screen that you're on. There's a chance I could try to share my screen instead, and then you could just tell me what screen I should be on. Now we're actually seeing a different screen.
Yeah. So the question is whether if you, I could simply, like, I'm sharing the link right now. If you pick that up and share your screen, can you try that? And then I could do something like do next slide, or I can share all the links I'm doing, and basically that should work. I think it's not a big deal, as long as you can make sure that everybody can see that. So did this update immediately? I'm seeing it immediately.
I'm now seeing a picture of SMW and key data storage. You know, a baby. It's a girl.
Yeah, that's exactly. This is the one we had in 2015. It was my talk, It's a Girl. We were talking about triples at the time. And as you can see, I was taking the example of the Princess of Cambridge. She was born like while I was in the States. And basically, she ended up having 2 pages. So one was in the Royal Family Wiki, and the other one was in the Family Wiki, where I put that. So the delay seems not to be too bad anymore if I go from one page to another.
Yeah, that's correct. Right now we're seeing it.
Yeah. So basically, here not much changed. Her mother is still Duchess Kate, and but the throne rank has changed. Like, she's got a brother now, and basically we've got instances where we need to update the data. And the original wiki, like this Royal Family Wiki, it had been based on Wikidata in the beginning. So the question is, how can we make sure that SMW and Wikidata can be used in database style? So I'm now on the next page. Slide number 6 doesn't show yet. And I would love to share. Pardon me?
Yeah, we're seeing slide 6. It's a girl, but some things have changed.
Yeah, I gave you the link to the other things. And the next thing that we can look at, you see, this is a new one. And if you want to follow these things a bit quicker, so first of all, we look into tabular data. So we've got a list of persons, and the list of persons would have like columns. And the one that we are going to look into in the example is the died column, because like Elizabeth II, she passed away. And when I did the wiki many years ago, she was still alive. So basically, we want to synchronize the information when she died from Wikidata into our Semantic MediaWiki. And for that, we have to look at both sides in database style. So one way to do that is that you go to the query in Wikidata. I'm sharing that, and I can run it. So if you run that, you get the tabular data for what does Wikidata know about recent deaths in the royal family, which would be your Elizabeth II. She passed away last year. Her husband passed away a year earlier. The Queen Mother in 2002, Princess Margaret in 2002, and Diana in 1997. So that's basically what Wikidata knows about the royal family and what we might be interested in looking at. So basically what we're doing here is we look at the database in a way that we've got rows, and the rows in a database in this case would be single pages. No, I cannot share my links anymore. Let's see. I'm trying again. This should be the page of Elizabeth II, as I had already shown before the talk started. And then we can look at her Wikidata entry. And both correspond to a row in a relational database. The more interesting part that we look into is going to be the columnar view, where we say we want to look at a column, and columns in Semantic MediaWiki are obviously defined by properties. In this case, I'm scrolling a bit. Hopefully you'll see that. Please scroll down in the person died in the family wiki, and you'll see all these people that have been entered here. It's 47 in total, where you can find out when they have died. The same is possible using the date of death property in Wikidata. The difference being that Wikidata will not show you like all the entries. If you would, you'd have to use a query for that one, and it would give you like, I don't know, 20 million entries. So that's a bit difficult, and that's why we want to have just the part that interests us. So basically, the next slide is a key slide of the whole talk here. The key thing is that it's quite easy to do row and column operations and row and column definition operations, because you can do that manually. You've got an API for that, or you could use tools like our Wikipush toolkit. The problem is if you want to change column values. For an SQL database, that's not a big problem. You simply do an update, and then thousands of entries can be changed. It's pretty typical that you, for instance, change a value in the database. Maybe all your people, your employees should get a pay rise, and then you say, okay, change a certain column, which is the pay, by 10% up, and people will love it. And they say, that's great, thanks for raising my pay. Doing that in a wiki is much more difficult because you'd have to change all those pages. If you've got 1,000 employees, you have to do this operation 1,000 times. So, and that was something that I found very peculiar about Semantic MediaWiki, and that's why I asked Tim to give me a solution for that. Tim Holzheim, he was in Breda, if some people know that, and he's been working on the issue I'm sharing here. Wiki-edit allowed to modify a single parameter of a so-called wikisong, which means just a macro. So the idea would be that later you can do things with that. And that means that you can now change a value, a single property, just by using this wiki-edit call. For instance, for Alexandra of Denmark, we want to change the label, and that's just one call. We say in the person, change the property label to the value Alexandra of Denmark in the page Alexandra of Denmark. That's slide 8. So I am going to share that, and hopefully it will show up on your screen in a while. The fun thing is not to do that once, but many, many times. So we have a few use cases where we want to do that. The one is the royal family, and the other one is the scholarly communication. And the example for the royal family shows you like what the I'll go to the other wiki, and then I'll share you the screen, the page where you can actually find these things. If you go to the concept family page and scroll a bit down, you'll find a UML model about the family. And from there, you can go to the concept person. Scroll down a bit, and you'll find the UML model for the person. I'm sharing these two, hopefully. That's the family concept. The other one is the person concept. I'm not sure whether these links made it fully. And given the delay, you don't see that immediately. Let's go back to the slides. And in the slides, we go further on to how we synchronize these things. And this is the part that is the most interesting one. This now shows how you can synchronize certain properties. Yep, this is actually the command line. Hopefully you'll be able to follow that link and look at the command line in detail. It tells the system to update itself. That's -u. The -t means go to the wiki with the ID family. And it talks about context. That means the project, the description you're doing, it's family context. Then the topic you're talking about, it's the person. And then you give the properties that you'd like to sync. And it's description, label, died at. And please show me the progress of doing that. Since I gave the host show 4 properties for 59 entries, it means 236 operations. And now the system happily goes about and looks all these things up. And it knows what the main key is, and I'll show you later how that is done. So the idea would be that we go from our entry Elizabeth II here, where she's not passed away yet, to the new entry in our wiki where we have the information that she died. And if I look at the history here, you can see that I prepared that this afternoon, so you can simply compare the history. And that's another link I'm going to share. Here's a link where you can see the difference between the 2 pages. And that is one of the 236 operations that have been done and achieves this effect. In scholarly communication, I've got the same problem, and that's basically what my research is about. And that's one of the things I already shared earlier. And I said the most interesting one is if you look at this long paper list that we had there. And I've got 2 wikis for that. One is my CR wiki, which is my research wiki. There you can actually follow the stuff I'm doing, and that's basically for trying out things. So there you'll have, for instance, a link for a list of papers, and there will be a single paper in there, and that was the one that was not very interesting. The real stuff goes on when we go to our publishing platform at RWH Aachen, and then you follow the list of papers. I had already shared that, but I want to share that in the talk here so that people know this is actually what my research is about. And here we've got about 60,000 papers that I need to synchronize later, and 129 are in there right now. One of the things I can sync there is event series. So these are scientific events, European conference on research, advanced technology, or whatnot. And basically, I can choose whatever properties I want to have and make sure that my Semantic MediaWiki and my Wikidata get updated accordingly. So I can do that for event series, for proceedings, for institutions, for scholars, and for papers. And basically, this is what my whole PhD is about. These are the instances that I'm really interested in, the data types. Institutions, same thing. Got a list of institutions. I think I added an institution recently. Yep, RW2H I5 was added to the list of institution. And that one currently doesn't have a home page, so I can take the command that's in here, and I should be able to do this at least once live. And I'm using a small list here so that we don't have to follow lots and lots of operations. And here we'll see a small delay, I think, but in a while you should see that it takes like 6 institutions now because there's a new one. It's 12 operations because it should update the description on the homepage. And when I'm finished with that, that takes about like 12 seconds. My list of institutions should have an updated homepage for my own institution. See, this is our homepage. So if anyone who wants to end up there and look me up, this is where I live from a research point of view. So now I've got a few minutes left to tell how this all works. It's 4 parts. First of all, I'm using self-describing properties. So I have a way to find out what properties are in our wiki and find out what I need to do for the model. That's why we need to talk about meta model and a term called CDIF and LinkML, which is all very interesting, but we'll not be able to dive into that. The main part is mapping your Semantic MediaWiki properties to Wikidata properties. And the last thing is that you have a command line tool, which you've already seen. And basically from there, we can move on. I think this is just a starting point of the whole show of different ways of doing this. And probably that's going to be interesting for the upcoming years, what different ways of doing that will be found and explored by different people. So self-describing properties is the starting point here. 2013, that was pure scene. You know that if you look at the meta model, at the metadata management page, 2015, that was Bitplan ProfiWiki. Here's an example which I can show how this works, that you have, for instance, a person label, which should be synchronized with the label from Wikidata. So this is like, if you scroll down, you'll see all the entries there. Next thing is that we can generate things. Here it's a bit of a pity that the generator command line is not visible so nicely. I put a screenshot in there where you can see that all the stuff is generated and updated. And this is the key point. This used to be Java code in the past. Some people know that in 2015 I started using Java, and I'm still not using PHP. I'm using Python now. And basically the input is in a format that is hard to understand. So we've got this so-called CDIF format, which basically describes all the properties in the system. And that's not very good. I want to move on. So what we do is that we change this to a LinkML format. And that is something we need to talk about. In the links, you'll see the link to LinkML, which is a tool which allows you to overcome this schisma between JSON schema and OWL and whatnot definitions, Python code, and getting your data in JSON or getting it as a CSV or getting it in an Excel table. The people from the LinkML project do a very good job in covering all these bases. And I don't want to reinvent the wheel there. That's why I'm intending to move away from the CDIF triple format and put everything in LinkML in the future. So this is a core part that currently maps the properties from SMW to Wikidata. It was a bit awkward because it's a single mapping thing, and then it costs some YAML description. But we decided, hey, let's go that route for the time being. So in there, you find a definition of what the command line arguments are that you want to use. For instance, the QID is the SMW, the Wikidata item identifier. Because it starts with a Q, we can call it a QID. Label and description are standard parts of any Wikidata page. And the interesting stuff we wanted to synchronize was died and died@. And actually, here's a typo in there, which led to not really synchronizing stuff. But if you look in the pages and the histories, you see that was not so bad, because for died@, we don't really get the data at the place of death, but we get an identifier for it. So there's a lookup step in there anyway, and we can now show off that that actually needs to be done, and it's part of our to-do list. Command line tool, no explanation here. And it says template font size, and I did a typo here. I'm so sorry. So I've got to fix my pages here. So I'm going back to the normal pages. And instead of showing the stuff, we have to go and fix that here. It's lowercase s. And for the last one, I think it's the same thing. So basically, in the one, I'm showing the usage, which you'll also find in the page itself. And the last thing is talking about what we want to do in the future. So this time I'm not going in slide mode. I'm bringing you to the section where the problem was the wrong template typo. And then we've got the section where the to-dos are mentioned, things we want to go do in the future. And that would be quite a bit of things. We find it a bit awkward at this time that you actually have to specify all your properties. We'd love to have a -all option. Also, working through the columns is not efficient, and sometimes you will hate to have all these history entries that show all the value changes. Like if you do that with hundreds and thousands of pages and maybe a dozen properties, you'll end up with a lot of changes that seem redundant. I don't care too much for that for my use cases, but you might care. A bidirectional sync would be just great. So we would love to have the data from your local semantic MediaWiki to show up in Wikidata. For instance, Simon Stier showed like an event he had. I would be most interested to have his event data in Wikidata, and he could use this tool to sync stuff right there. Having a graphical user interface would be good. Tim started already having a sync dialog. It would be good to have some generation mapping and stuff and all that. And since I think I only have a few minutes left, I'm going to scroll down to the links section where you can see all those projects we've been talking about. The link MLIO is quite important. So it's a link we should actually visit. Please watch this and go into all the details. That's an important part. And then I'm already done and would like to get your questions and discussion elements so that we can find out what we can all do about this.
Wolfgang?
The first question that Jan has is, how widely is LinkML used? I was a bit surprised that it's not so widely used as I would have hoped. I think I was the first one that asked the question about LinkML on Stack Overflow. The actual community is elsewhere. They have a chat, a Slack channel, and the Slack channel has some 100 people, I think. Not 1,000, it's just 100. What other questions would you have?
Hey Wolfgang, I think we're going to have a couple more questions come in the channels, but maybe you can answer them during the next presentation, and then we can switch over to Cindy and let her.
You want to take over again?
Sure. But you'll hear clapping in the background from the audience here in a second, but thank you very much, Wolfgang. Super interesting talk. Thank you. So we're going to have Cindy Chickalise, our keynote speaker, come on and switch over to be an in-person talk, and she'll be talking about measuring MediaWiki usage.
My audio is still... Cindy asked what I was using SMW for before integrating Wikidata. I've got many.
Sorry, Wolfgang, you can finish the question. Oh, there you go. We can hear you.
So there are some contexts that I might share, and you see that you'll find them in the context thing. So like a CRM system is something I did. I'm using it for presentations and for trainings, of course.
Okay. Oh, he's still talking. Oh, he's probably answering James.
Yeah, he just, Wolfgang just finished up, I think, the last question. So thank you again, Wolfgang. We're going to pass over to Cindy now for the keynote.
And this is like our university course on database and information systems that even our students have not seen yet. We've not published it yet, but that's not a big problem. You can look at these things if you have fun with it.
Oh, there's me.
He should stop sharing his screen.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I think we're done, right?
Yep, that's it. Wolfgang, let's switch over then.